We've got Upper Room with us today. Oscar and Jonathan. These are the kingpins behind so much incredible music, a very distinct, defined ministry of worship that is making its mark and influence all around the nation, perhaps even the world. And we're going to talk today about just finding out the backstory behind the culture of this place, this name that you're so familiar with, and then brand new music. If you've heard of this album called 1350, finding even out what is 1350 and what are these incredible songs coming out. So we got J. Lou and Oscar. Here we are, PraiseCharts Live. Welcome to the conversation. Well, this is kind of a different layout, but hey, I just had to figure out how do I put two guys with me in the middle? It's like we're in the same room. I love it. Welcome to the show, JLou and Oscar from Upper Room. This is fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, thank
Everybody
you.
listening, so good to just join you on this podcast. So thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I mean, as I was telling you, for so many years, I've been very aware of Upper Room and seen just a rich catalog of songs develop that we have been able to host in PraiseCharts. But I'm so interested to know a bit of the story behind and the heart behind specifically what God seems to have been calling you to in your ministry of worship. Now, you guys are based in Dallas. Is that right? Is it Dallas, Texas? Am I
Dallas, Texas,
correct? Okay, and are there like other campuses, or is it all kind of focused in one central location and people are coming to you? I mean, I know you're interacting so many different artists. Is that how it is? Just localized into Dallas?
localized right here in
Right
Dallas. We
here.
have there's a smaller campus a little bit north, um, but yeah, we're right here in the city of
Love
Dallas.
it. Love it. Well, can we just open by the two of you tell me a little bit about how you fit into Upper Room and describe the culture, the ministry, the purpose, the calling that you each feel that Upper Room has. Bring me into the sphere of what is Upper Room all about. So, J. Lou, why don't we just start with you? Just give me your
Sure.
perspective. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Well, he's calling me J. Lou, and please, I want everybody to call me J. Lou. Everybody does
Yeah.
around here, and my name is Jonathan Lewis.
Yeah.
But years ago, people started calling me J-Lu, and it just stuck. So, yeah, I'm the worship pastor here at Upper Room, and so I get to kind of lead all of these creatives. It's kind of like, uh, gathering squirrels, shepherding squirrels.
Isn't it like that? I know.
But I
Artists,
love
right?
it.
You just,
It's so good.
artists are just like that. You can't pin them down, but
Yeah, that's
then
right.
they do such amazing things.
They're amazing people. So,
Yes.
and we got a lot of them. So, and one of them's right
Yeah.
here. So, but yeah, we have such a beautiful community. I've been here for about 9 years. I came in 2016, and I felt like I just found my people, found my tribe, and
Yeah.
um, it's been just such a gift. Upper Room's just been such a gift to me. People often ask, like, "What is Upper Room?" And
Yeah.
that's kind of part of the
That's what I
question
want to
is,
know.
what are we? What is Upper Room? Um, I tell people early on in the Upper Room days, we probably struggled to find our identity between knowing, are we a house of prayer or are we a church?
Yeah.
And so we're a praying church and so that's kind of what we do. A lot of what we do is kind of centered around the prayer room. We have a prayer room that goes from 6 in the morning. We're not a 24 hour, but we
Hmm.
go from six in the morning to 8 at night. So every day, if you were to walk into that room, you'd see somebody in there playing and ministering to the Lord. And
Hmm.
that's really the core, kind of the epicenter of all things, and everything kind of flows out of that. Our albums, our music, our services, our community flow out of uh, that kind of rhythm. And so we're just super thankful for it. That's kind of how we started off. We
Hmm.
started in 2010. Our community started in 2010 right here in the city of Dallas, and from early on, the Lord asked us. our pastor Michael Miller would tell this story. I'll tell it. It won't have the significance because I'm just phrasing it. But he said that he would love to start a church in the suburbs, and he said he would love to go build a church and minister to people. And the Lord called him to the inner city of Dallas. Actually, called him to Oak Lawn, which is like a really large homosexual district, and they used to call it, in fact, probably still today, it's called like the graveyard of churches. So people would go there to start churches and wouldn't last. Just kind of really hard to build a church there. But the Lord called him there, and Miller asked him why. He said, "Well, why did you call me here?" And he said, the Lord told him, he said, "I called you here to minister to me, not to people." Um, and so what we would find out is that our calling is to minister to the Lord, which was new phrasing for me. I didn't really know what that meant when I started coming. And so, but I found it to be just really beautiful that out of this ministry to the Lord, that actually in the midst of that, then he comes and he meets the needs of people.
Yeah.
And so it's not that we're not ministering to people. It's just that our first priority is him. And so it's just been really marking for me personally, for us as a community, and really for our city. We really feel like our city has been marked by a group of people who just come and we minister to the Lord.
That priority. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oscar, why don't you fill in the gaps if there are any? My mind is twirling and I've got some questions to ask. I'm fascinated, but I first want to hear from you a little bit, Oscar, and then we'll delve into some of the inner workings of it.
So I've been coming to church at Upper Room for 12 years, been here for 12, so it's been a very long time. And my role is like musician, MD, producer for the albums, So it's been a really fun journey to help steward the music side of things and the practicality side of things, to help write some of the songs, produce some of the albums. I think Upper Room is I think praying church. I think that's kind of like the easiest way of saying it. And for us, prayer is relationship, and someone who prays to God is in relationship with God, and that's the key. The original term is like it's not religion, it's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of the aspect of that is like you learn to have a relationship with the living God, not just at an individual level, but within a community. You start to find people that love God the same way we love God, the same way, like we find people that just love the Lord. And then from there, it's like he, through us or through himself, the Lord starts to meet the needs of his people.
Yeah.
And it's a really beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful place just to like be in, worship. I want my kids to grow up around it. I've been heavily impacted by it.
So beautiful. All right, here's a question I have as I'm listening to you is I have this hunch that if Upper Room is really centered around, like you were saying, this prayer room where it's kind of going on not just for 20 minutes or 13 minutes and 47 seconds as might be in some churches. God bless us all. We have our time constraints, but you have this environment where worship is just flowing. I have this hunch that some of the music that's coming out of Upper Room has its origins in like the freedom of spontaneity growing into things that you might want to like record or put into a specific song. But then the actual context of worship is sometimes it doesn't have the time constraints, so there's room to explore. I'm wondering if we could just unpack that a little bit in this world where we're listening to the radio and we got the 3-minute songs and we sort of take these radio cuts into church and then we've got 14 minutes, that we've been dedicated to. But there's this other culture where you have to learn another approach to music, where it's not a 3-minute song. I'm just presuming that this is how it is at Upper Room, at least in some context. Can we talk about that a little bit of how that spontaneous, ever-flowing, ministering kind of approach to worship can evolve, and if some churches feel like they'd want to grow in that, maybe we could find some encouragement for them. So I don't know, J. Lou, do you have any thoughts about that? Am I poking on something that might be
Yeah.
true in your space? Okay.
Sounds like you've been listening. Sounds like you've been
Okay.
listening to
I don't
it.
know. I'm just a
No,
hunch.
you know, I, there's a long conversation in this. I'm trying to figure out how to say this in a really narrow way.
Okay.
And I think the best way to say it is really what we value is we value the person of Jesus to come and meet with us every time that we
Yeah.
gather. And another way that we would say that, I'm going to interchange two things here, but I want you to hear them as the same. We're looking for faith to hit our hearts. But when I say faith, what I'm saying is we're looking for the person of Jesus to hit our hearts and to like impact us. And so, and for us to be transformed by him.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're singing a song, let's say that we're taking a written song, and we start to sing that song. What I'm looking for as a worship leader, I'm looking for faith or the person of Jesus to come alive in that. And so maybe let's say that this is a song that I've sang hundreds of times before. Well, instead of just singing the song because I've sang it before, and even just because I have history with this song, I'm looking for it to be brand new and fresh again.
Mm-hmm.
In the moment. And so, sometimes like like what you're referencing is like, how does spontaneous impact our culture, our community, and why has it marked us? Well, it's marked us because we are looking for the person of Jesus or faith to come alive as we're singing it. And once that happens, what we do is we just center and kind of stay around where we feel the person of Jesus is and what he's highlighting about himself. And so in the midst of singing about him, we'll see a nature of him come alive. Maybe it's his goodness, and maybe he's wanting to highlight his goodness to us. But his goodness is hitting us in a fresh, new way, and we're encountering that. So what we'll do is, and you referenced this, we have a little bit of time on our hands, and so we'll just explore that what I would call it, that cavity of goodness, or that cavity of faithfulness. And what we'll see is the more that we sing things around that nature, it starts to actually come alive more, and we start to encounter it more. And so, and some of our language is that we would become transformed by that nature of Jesus. And so that's probably the shortest answer that I could give, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I still have more questions. So, but Oscar, just like looking at it from your perspective, because you said you're a music director, you're MDing. There is the spiritual longing side of like we want to meet with Jesus, and then there is how do we do that as a band? How do we create the safety and the confidence? I think those might be two good words that maybe musicians could understand, because that's what I want to feel like, is that if I'm playing keyboards and there's a few other musicians, it's often if I'm leading, how can I make them feel safe and confident? And yet sometimes I just want to say, just follow me. And yet I don't want to take them into a train wreck, because that doesn't feel great. And in the PraiseCharts world, I love diving into that intersection of the musicianship that makes the spiritual calling function. So could we kind of poke into there a little, Oscar? How does this actually work on a
Like the
musically?
practical level. So I think especially when it comes to spontaneous worship, it's like, so the way it works is we start with a song, and usually a song of thanksgiving, and thanksgiving is always attached to remembrance, and I think as an MD, the number one aspect for me is I need to listen not just musically but lyrically and be in tune of what the worship leader is feeling. So we usually debrief before, and we're like, hey, what are you guys feeling? What song and what attribute of God do we want to like sing about? Because ultimately that's our definition of faith. For a long time, faith for me was what God's going to do, but his action is always attached to his being. So we try to focus on like the goodness of God, or like the faithfulness of God. And then I think as a worship leaders, they usually are very narrow. Once they find that attribute in a prayer set, they're very narrow with their lyrics of like we want to stay in and actually let it resonate in our hearts because like you can say it that he's faithful until you don't feel like he's faithful, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when you realize, man, I need God, and then he starts to like reveal himself as a faithful God. So musically, like I think about like if it's goodness or if it's like exaltation, I think of more like celebratory chords. Like is it a one chord, is it a four chord, is it a five chord?
Mm-hmm.
If we're more in a mellow spot of like just like being with him, intimate spot, I kind of switch chords a little bit. It could be like a two minor with a four. So with a band perspective, we start with a song, and it could be more high praise or more exaltation. So I know the chords of the song pretty well. And once we start to flow outside the song, we usually stick within the chords of the chorus, with the chords of the bridge. But for me,
Yes.
I'm also listening to what they're saying. So let's say singer, the co-leader of the set, starts going more intimate, and that's kind of where we're the direction we're heading. I have an empty mic, and I'm like, hey, let's bring it down. I have a progression, and I tell them the
Right.
progression, it's the 2 4 1 5, and it's more intimate.
Yeah.
But I'm already communicating that to the band to start going there, and then let's say the worship leader starts singing a familiar song within the theme and within the chords. That's when I'm like, if I know it, I like, hey, I'm gonna go this progression. It could be 2 1 5, and the band follows. Or sometimes I gotta go up and look up the chords and like, what song is this? Let's figure it out. And then
Right.
I either the worship leader tells me the progression, and I communicate to the band. And then from there,
Yes.
according to where the bands go, where the worship leader wants to go, I'm like, hey, let's bring in toms here, bass in. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
like guiding them musically so they don't feel like they just need direction. And then
Yes.
from there, it's like, hey, within spontaneous moments, the guitar player's like, hey, I got a line, so I let them play. And if it's a good line, I like double it with them just to like affirm, hey, this is a good line.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then as we build up, it's like there's clarity, safety, and confidence because they always know where we're going because I'm telling them kind of where we're heading. And then whenever we drop down, it's like if it's just piano, it kind of falls on me. So it's like I kind of carry more of the weight. And then once I
Yes.
kind of know where things are heading, I kind of establish a new progression or a new feel or a different tempo within the
Yeah.
set.
So what you're describing, it sounds like you're the worship leader, but you're not actually the worship leader. Someone you're supporting, you need to be in tune with where you sense the worship leader wants to go, but then a
Right.
worship leader is going to feel that freedom that they don't have to necessarily call the next chord or because that can just get to be a lot going on in someone's head
Right.
and then they look distracted or so I'm just very fascinated by how this spontaneous dance moves
Yeah.
of serving each other. You're there to serve the worship leader, but also it sounds to me like you're taking some bold moves of going, okay, we're just going to go to the one. I mean, you're not getting that directly from the worship leader. You're just sensing it. Is that right? Just
Correct.
help me.
Because we have 2 hours, and at
Yeah.
times the worship leaders kind of whenever they're not singing and they stand they stand away from the mic. That's usually an indicator of like, okay, like they're kind of just waiting, they're reading
Okay.
scripture, maybe the prayer. We have a prayer leader which like reads scriptures and they pray. They pray to God. I think singing is, you sing to God. Praying is like you're praying to God,
Mm-hmm.
without singing. So
Mm-hmm.
when it's that place, and I kind of sense I'm like, oh, they're kind of shifting themes or they're shifting to a new direction. I tell them, I was like, hey, is it cool if I go to the one? And the worship is like, go for it. So that gives me
Right.
like a kind of a clean
Mhm.
slate of the next phase of the
Yeah.
section we're going.
Yeah. I
I would
love.
just add,
Go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear it, Jaylu.
want to add just a little bit of language to that. I think one of the beautiful things about what we have cultivated and our culture is it's almost conversational. Like as a worship leader, I'm a worship leader, but like I'm not the only one in the conversation. And so knowing that Oscar on a
Yes.
piano is a part of the conversation, just like the three of us right here. I was just looking at the three of us, and all of us are immersed in this conversation, and
Yes.
it's progressing. And so
Yes.
the same thing should be happening in worship.
Right.
It shouldn't be just Oscar on a piano trying to follow me as a worship leader where I'm going.
Yeah.
It should be engaged in the conversation.
Yeah.
And going back to even just the thought of like us seeing the person of Jesus, or pulling out that faith, feeling that faith. I tell this story a lot of times. Oscar, early on when we were playing together as an MD, and I had played with a lot of people before. I'd had a lot of MDs, but Oscar made this comment, and I had never heard this from an MD. He said to me, and he said it in a conversation one day, and he said, somebody was asking him about how he MDs, and he said this comment, and it just always stuck with me. He goes, I know what to play to pull something out of J-Lu. And I had never heard that from someone, because it's almost like Oscar's leading worship with me now. It's like it's not just me, and Oscar's trying to follow me as an MD and trying to be that go between me and a band and trying to serve and facilitate. Now it's like I have a partner, and now I can take something to a certain level, but now once Oscar starts to play something from the nature of God that he's seen, it's again that cavity that I talked about in the heart of God that we're kind of exploring. Now I'm looking at it from a different lens from what he's playing, maybe a different melody or a different chord progression, and it's actually provoking a new song out of me, and or new lyrics. And so it's a really, I think, that partnership between a worship leader and an MD, and then you expand that even beyond the MD to a band. Imagine a full band moving in this way, like thinking a drummer, how can I pull something out of that worship leader? Or a drummer thinking, how can I pull something out of Oscar on the piano? How can I play something and it'll make Oscar play something that he's not playing right now? It's just this beautiful. I mean, it's almost like, you give that thing some time to marinate, and 20, 30, 40 minutes, however long you have, maybe 13 minutes, like you said, you're in a place that you never could have imagined. And that's what we found. It's really beautiful. And it's a fun thing.
Yeah, it's a great analogy that even just pointing to this very conversation that we're having. Like, for example, I came into this conversation last night. I did some study on you, and I made a whole bunch of notes. I prepared a whole bunch of questions. And let me tell you, the stressful thing for me of coming into this conversation was me thinking, how am I going to remember all the questions that I wanted to ask you? And then I'd have to be constantly looking over there. And then I would lose track of what you're saying because I'm reading the questions that I had prepared. And so it's like, I didn't come into this with nothing, but where we are going now, I didn't prepare for. I just had to listen. And so I just find that to be an interesting analogy of what if we could approach our worship times. It's like, it's not like you don't come with something prepared, but even I, as a worship leader, I'm pretty good usually at knowing progressions. Like, I can play by ear fairly well, but it's the lyrics. And it's, am I going to forget the lyrics? Am I going to get distracted? Am I looking on my screen or up at the it's all those technical things. And there's something in my spirit that wants to just have a conversation like we're having and go off the page. But it's not so disconnected from my preparation, and yet it's not forced by, and something very special happens. And even in these interviews that I do, sometimes I usually give myself an hour. I've had some conversations go for 20 minutes and some go for 40 or 50 minutes. I literally you were calling in at the tail end of my last conversation because they just didn't want to stop talking. But which was great. It's just an interesting parallel that we're kind of exploring here.
Yeah, it really is. I have found in this dynamic of what we're even talking about, that kind of in these cultures, I have found my wonder grow. I guess if you can even ask, is wonder, do some people have it and some people don't, or can you grow it? I think you can grow it, and I think these are
Mm-hmm.
some of the conversations, ways that you can grow wonder. Because again, I would have never seen the Lord like I have seen the Lord in my partnership with Oscar, or my partnership with the way a drummer sees the Lord and starts to interpret that through his instrument. Or
Mm-hmm. That's good. So, with all of that as kind of a background, it's a beautiful background. Still, out of this, we have albums and songs and cuts, and there's beginnings and endings. I mean, these songs don't just go on for 2 hours. In the so let's just look at.
yeah,
I know I just have you, Oscar, in here, but J-Lu, we can still hear your voice. I just don't have room
good.
for you on the screen. But 1350, I think this is the address of your first location. Is that not right?
Right.
Just
Yes.
what is 1350?
So 1350 is the place where we did church and we did prayer sets for
Yeah.
like 7 years, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so the cool thing about this album is, so after we after the night was done, I think we did 2 nights. After the last night, my friend came up to me and he's like, "This feels like a crystallized version of a season."
Hmm.
And so, like 1350 is a season of my life where I have history with the Lord, with my community at Upper Room. I've had highs, I've had lows. I've encountered God. I've seen the Lord move in my heart. I've seen the Lord move in my life. I've seen the Lord move in my friend's life. I've seen the Lord move in Jadu's life. And it's such a rich history. It's like an Ebenezer. It's a milestone that
Hmm.
we'll remember forever. It's like so many songs were written during that time in this place. So many friendships were established, and I just think we used to do a Friday night prayer set back in the day where we're like, that's where I kind of grew my bearing in spontaneous worship, and I developed so many friends. And I think this album 1350, it's actually 1350 Manufacturing, is just a little milestone and a little glimpse of what we've
Hmm.
been doing for like the last 7 years.
Hmm. Well, let's explore a couple of the songs. I was asking you for a few before, and Consider Him definitely was one that you had wanted to highlight. We've tried to chart this as best as we
Even the
can,
piano
but
part, it's
hey,
awesome.
what's that? There you go. I mean,
That's cool.
uh,
Yeah.
hopefully, I mean, I think I love these piano charts because it can help pianists just give them an idea of how to shape their chords, but hopefully
Yeah.
maybe even stemming from this conversation, they can be inspired to, hey, go off the page if you're not stuck to these
Mhm.
specific 104 measures. But given that as a background, I mean, the music is here. Even we do this to songs that people are grabbing onto that they seem to want to sing, and clearly this is a song that's already found
Yeah.
its voice in many churches. So yeah, tell us a little
Well,
about the song.
I'll let Oscar talk about
Okay.
Consider Him, but I just want to say one thing, and this is in
Yeah.
Thanksgiving for what you guys do, and in light of the conversation. Me and Oscar have talked about this before, but one of the reasons why a musician can go off the page is because they've studied the page.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah.
so like that's one of the beautiful things about the resources you guys are providing, is that like for someone to sit and look at the notes and see the parts and practice the parts, it actually provides so much framework for a person
Yes.
to break the rules or go into a different
Yeah.
way. I mean, I remember practicing songs on a piano, but that practicing and the hours that you practice and put into going over a song allows you at some point to go off the script. So I
Yeah.
say all that to say super thankful for you guys
Yes.
for
Hmm.
providing things like this. And so
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, even as I'm looking at your music, because I read all these charts. But I could see some of the way we've charted this out, which probably reflects what's going on in the recording, but you could carry these voicings into other songs or other progressions or
True.
build other ideas off of this. So that's
Correct.
kind of like what you can find in here is not just playing this song measure for measure, but this may unlock
yeah,
new places to explore on the keyboard. So
so true.
So that's interesting. Anyways, Oscar, tell us a little bit about this song in particular.
So this song, we wrote it with my friend. It was my sister-in-law, Abby Gamboa, my brother, Gabe, and then my friend, David Funk. And
Yes,
then
from
also
Bethel, right?
from Bethel, yeah.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is so we wrote it on a Monday. That Sunday before, our pastor Larissa, which is Michael Miller's wife, she was talking about Hebrews 12, how he's the author and the finisher of our faith, and to consider him, because and like because he's the author and the finisher, he's the one that starts it and he's the one that finishes it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not us, it's him. So that's kind of like the theme of the song, and I think for us, we're like so impacted by it because there's so much. I mean, there's nothing wrong about hard work, but there is a hustle culture in music. There is a hustle culture
Yes.
in the space that we're in, and the beautiful thing about it is that confronts that. It's actually him who starts it.
Yeah.
If we partner with him and we partner in his leadership and follow him, he's the one who's going to finish it. It's going to be better than we ever imagined. And it's about. There's someone told me this recently. Things die quickly, but things grow very slowly. So understanding that we're on a journey, a pilgrimage, that like when he gives us a seed in our heart, that like, man, I'm gonna be a worship leader. I want to be a musician. Whatever that thing can be, it's actually slow growth due to sustainability and due to his leadership. And um, that's the beauty about him. He's the author. He's still writing the story. He's still, and he's the one who's going to finish the chapter. He's going to finish the book. And I think that's the beauty of it. We actually used some of her words verbatim. We asked her for preaching notes, so a lot of it was very verbatim. It has a lot of her language, and we're really thankful for it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Maybe we could just poke into a few other songs here. J-Lu, is there one that stands out for you that you'd like me to open up, and then we can just...
How about Open the Scroll? I see the Open the Scroll there. I can tell a little bit of the story of
there
that
we
one.
go. Yes.
So Open the Scroll, and this may make sense, a little bit more sense for people who have followed our community. Years ago, probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago, early on, there was a spontaneous song that came out, and it was Alyssa singing this song. And it was just a chorus. It was open the scroll, break the seal, worthy one. I think the 2 parts had 2 parts.
Yeah.
Am I right?
3 parts.
3 parts. 3 parts. Yeah. But it wasn't a formed song. It was just kind of the spontaneous thing that came out. There were no verses to it. And we were so marked by that song, and that we've just done it. We've gone back and done it over the years, that probably a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, we just sat down and said, let's put the Lord inspired this song. He gave us something. And we've been faithful to it. Now let's come around it and let's put our giftings that the Lord has given us to this song. And so that's when a team kind of sat down and wrote the verses to the song. I think Oscar was a part of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so Alyssa came down and wrote with us again. So finished the song. And so it's just been such a blessing. And another powerful part of that is, earlier this year, we were in Brazil, and we sang this song in Brazil, and it was almost like I joke with people. I said this song is actually a Brazilian song, because it's like when they started singing it. I mean, even without knowing it, they just started singing, oh santo, and I mean, it's just like, I think the Brazilian church was meant to sing that song.
You sung it translated for them, is that right? In their language.
We translated it. Yeah, and that'll be coming out later this year. So yeah, the translation of it. So powerful. Anyway, it's just so powerful. I use Open the Scroll just because it's been a powerful song in our community for a long time.
Yes. Oscar, how about this song, Blood of Jesus? You had pointed that one out before as well.
That was similar too. So I think our pastor did a sermon about the blood of Jesus. I think we're taking communion after his sermon, and so he wanted us to come up and like sing a song. And I just started, like during ministry time, I kind of like to kind of just play, see kind of what's kind of stick. No one's singing, he's still preaching. And I was playing the melody of the bridge, And then my sister-in-law Abby, she's like I kind of like. She's like really feeling that melody, and she starts singing "Nothing but the blood, nothing but the blood, nothing but the blood of Jesus." And it stuck. Like I remember, it was like a powerful moment. And then I got my phone, recorded it. I was like, this is really special, you know. And sometimes they just live as a tag, you know, forever, or they actually get built out of the song. So we were writing for the album, and then we were with a friend Rafi, and he starts singing something like he finds a little melody for the verse, and I was like, this feels like it fits somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea was just to write a really simple song, like about the blood of Jesus, you know, like something that's like all heart. You don't have to really think about it too much. Ones that you can just kind of like sing to God, like, you know, like ones that like you don't have to like, almost like you don't have to like read the lyrics. It's just all like it's just truths that live in your heart. And and that's kind of how we just decided to write it. And I think it was one of those that you're like, man, it's a song that you're like, it just makes sense. You know, like people sing it. It's one that's not complicated. You know, it's like one that you can just sing to the Lord.
And that phrase, of course, nothing but the blood. I mean, it evokes. We've got the hymn that it goes back to. I'm not sure if your melody reflects that part, but certainly nothing but the blood is. I mean, everybody would think of the age-old hymn, which you know, is an incredible phrase, iconic for the ages. So so good.
Yeah, there's some songs when you first hear them, you feel like, is this a song? I feel like I've heard this song. I feel like it's always existed. This is Blood of Jesus is one of those where
right.
It feels iconic to, like it's always, we've always sung it.
Yeah. And it's fascinating that it, you know, it had its roots in a spontaneous moment, like just you playing at the piano and then paying attention and then going, oh, okay, something might have something here. But I have found, and I don't know if you find this as well, that if I'm just sitting and playing piano by myself, I mean, I can make things up. I can play by ear, but something happens when I'm in a worship service also where I have played things during prayer times that I don't know what. I may call it inspiration or just something shifts and I'm finding new places and then I can't remember it after, right? As this is kind of what it's almost like you're doing here is you're just taking those moments and knowing that when you're on stage and everything's live and whatever's going on in our bodies and our minds and our hearts and spirits and we're making stuff right there and to pay attention and it all makes sense. Thank you guys so much for go ahead, you just share a little more what you're saying.
I just think it's important to know, like, we're always just stewarding, you know. A lot of the songs I'm a part of, it's like it feels like it's besides myself, you know, it's the Lord's, and you're just stewarding the moment and what he wants to say lyrically, melodically, word wise. You know, I think we're just stewards, you know. And kind of some of the songs, like I think about "Give Me Jesus" is not part of this project, but like I remember it just flowed. You know, it's like I don't remember what I wrote, but I wrote something, and everyone kind of feels the same. And we just wrote a beautiful piece that like the church has really touched. And it's like we weren't trying to write a hit. It's like we're just faithful to the season, and faithful to the right, and faithful to the song, and faithful to the Lord.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow, thank you so much for unpacking the inner workings of Upper Room. You have a very powerful ministry. It's reaching a lot of people, and just want to encourage you to stay with your heart just in that right place, that prayerful heart, and ministering to the Lord like you're saying. Don't try to write a hit. Just let it happen naturally. I think that seems to be the best way. So, love it. So, for those of you who are looking, we got the sheet music. Sure, read the sheet music, but maybe let it inspire you to go find your own progressions, your own songs. Wander away from the measures that are on the page and let Upper Room be an inspiration to you, and maybe find a new song. That'd be my encouragement for you. So thank you, Oscar. Thank you, J. Lou.
Thank you.
This is Ryan with Upper Room, and I hope this has been encouraging to you. We'll see you later. Very good. Bye then.
Brian, thank you
Thanks
so
so
much.
much.
Great to meet you.